Welcome to the Chase and Embrace Show, where I have deep dive conversations with women who have said yes to Jesus and embrace His love, His identity, and His authority in her life. Come join the conversation with us today. To Chase and Embrace, and I am so happy that you are here with me today. I have Shelley, who is owner of Honestly Awkward. And Shelley, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes, I am looking forward to our conversation today. And the first question right off the bat, okay, what is Honestly Awkward and how did you come up with the name? I love the name. I think it's so cool.
Thank you. It's very much a conversation starter.
Yes, for sure.
So, Honestly Awkward is a craft and paint party business. So, I do paint parties and I sell like take home paint kits and things like that. I actually just bought a spin art machine, which I'm really excited about.
Fun.
And the name Honestly Awkward is actually a domain that I've owned for probably several years.
Mm-hmm.
And it came because my husband and I were watching Lego Masters,
Okay.
the very first season. And we were watching all these couples and these people like do their Lego crafts. And I said, I just love them because they're just so like honestly awkward.
Uh-huh.
Like there's a true like authentic awkwardness as opposed to anything feeling forced. And I was like, oh, that would be a good business name someday. And I literally went and bought the domain that day.
That's
And I've
awesome.
had it ever since. And then when I started my crafting business, I'm like, this seems like an honestly awkward kind of business.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it was years in the making, but it came from watching Lego Masters with my husband.
Yeah, that's so funny. I love it though. It's a really cool name. It's so different, but honestly awkward. It's just being authentic to your awkwardness, right? And a lot
Yes.
of artists tend to be more, creative and society sees them as awkward. So I kind of love it so much. I think it's a really cool name. So tell me,
Yeah.
what is your story? So you started Honestly Awkward. What were you doing before that?
Well, before that, my original career was in teaching. I was a teacher for over a decade. And then, actually, right before COVID, I became a virtual assistant and I was looking for ways to get out of teaching, mostly because I wanted to do other things. Teaching is very, very strict and scheduled. And, you just don't have any free time. And what free time you have is the same free time everybody else has.
Right.
So I wanted to take some classes and things like that. And teaching just doesn't allow for that. And so I was looking for other things that I could potentially do. I ended up becoming a virtual assistant, which is a fantastic transition job
Mhm.
as it kind of gives you time and space to figure out what you want to do. I truly believe that God had a plan for that to happen because I resigned early in February. I was going to finish out the school year, but they brought me in because they were looking to make some changes in the school and wanted my opinion. And I said, just don't plan around me. I'm not going to be here next year. Like, I will officially be resigning. And so they're like, okay, just go ahead and put your resignation in. We'll deal. And COVID then happened the next month. And I do know because of how I feel about things that I would have had a really hard time leaving if I
Mhm.
hadn't already resigned. So
Right.
the fact that I got pulled into that meeting early and that I then pushed my resignation forward earlier than I was originally expecting, and so it came before COVID, it takes all that guilt out of leaving
Right.
after COVID,
Yes.
because that would have been very, very difficult, because I had been teaching for a long time and I am tech savvy and things like that. So I'm very thankful that that all happened in the timing that it did. And then, so I finished out that school year online and then did the full-time virtual assistant thing for a long time. I'm actually certified as an online business manager
Mhm.
as well. And just through that time, so after I got certified as an online business manager, I was auditing a business that was a paint party business
Huh?
online. I just wanted to see what their business model looked like. And so I watched one of their like opt-ins and their one of their videos. And it's like, this is fun. Like I could do this. So I like transitioned into that kind of thing. And so just in the last, 3/4 of a year, I just decided to go ahead and do that as kind of my full-time thing moving forward. I still have one client, virtual assistant client, but for the most part, I'm just kind of putting all my eggs in kind of the crafting paint party business basket, essentially.
Cool. So now when you do the paint parties, it's not like you have a location and everybody comes into one location. It's kind of an online thing, right? Tell me how that works.
It can be either. So I am
Okay.
going to be starting online ones here as I'm moving more full-time that direction
Okay.
because I do from my business, like online business stuff, I do have that skill set. And so
Okay.
that is where I'm hoping to go here as I'm finishing this kind of transition
Okay.
period. But right now it's like restaurants. So I have a restaurant in our hometown that I go to and we do paint parties there. I've been doing a bunch of vendor and craft fairs like on Saturdays, which actually works out really well. My husband often comes with me and our kids, and it's kind of a
Fun.
family thing. My kids sit at my booth and they paint.
Yeah, so where are
And so
you
I sell like
located?
watercolor kits and things like that.
Yeah, so
So
where
we're in Des Moines, near the Des Moines area.
okay,
We're actually just outside Des Moines, but near Des Moines, Iowa.
it's cool. I love that. I didn't realize
Right.
for some reason I thought you did from went from virtual assistant to online paint parties, but you actually do them in person, which is amazing. I always find that easier.
Yeah, and
Almost,
well, and that's one of the things that I realized working online for so many years, because it's been 4 or 5 years since I stopped teaching, is that I enjoy people.
yeah.
I enjoy being around people. I enjoy having relationships with people, and I had relationships with people virtual assisting, but a lot of times, like, I worked for at least a couple clients that I never spoke to in person.
Wow.
All of our exchanges were always via email, and we had great relationships via email, but
Mhm.
that was the extent of our relationship. So,
Yeah.
I really enjoy being around people, being a part of my community. I enjoy that it's a business that can go on the back of a little league t-shirt,
Huh? That's true.
and things like that. So, yeah, that's kind of where I have ended up when it's all said and done, but I feel like, you know, God has been just kind of allowing this path to happen
Mhm.
and allowing me to be open-minded to the things that are coming up and just continuing to make things actually very easy decisions. So it was very easy for me to go from teaching to virtual assisting. It was very easy for me to make the decision to go from virtual assisting to online business management. It was very easy to go from online business management to the arts business. And it was just because it felt like the right time, the right place. Everything was in place. Um, yeah,
That's
so it's
amazing.
been a really interesting transitional career here in the
Yeah.
last couple years.
Yeah, and it sounds like it's still kind of in transition and moving. God is always good, though.
Yeah.
That's the one thing I've noticed that if you follow God and his purpose, he's not going to keep you in that one place. He's always going to add on or change. And it's actually, I find it exciting. I think it makes life really super exciting because you're doing this now, but you don't know that you'll be doing this in the next year. And you have to really be flexible and open. But it's never a
Mhm.
regrettable experience. Sometimes it can be hard. Like sometimes they'll ask us to do big things that can be hard. But after you do it and you go through the whole process and you get to the other side, it's like, wow, we're in such a much better place. Now, one of the things that um, we had talked about is that what did this transition do for your family?
So this is a huge revelation for me as a young professional person. So my husband and I think like a lot of young people leaving college, we both have 4-year degrees, is that it was go off and now start jobs.
Mm, yeah.
And you need to start the job. And we were coming out of, we're millennials, and it was coming out of the people who were in the same career forever, right? Our parents were the people who had the same career for 35, 40 years. So, we were raised that way of like you find your career and you move forward in that career.
Mhm.
So I really thought when I went into teaching that I would be a teacher forever.
Mhm.
To the point where I knew my retirement date.
Wow.
So, like, I knew what that was going to be and what that was going to look like. And so it was a big, big change to get to the point where you then had to tell people that like, "Oh, yeah, I'm not gonna be a teacher anymore."
Mhm.
Because everybody just even people now, they knew I went to school for teaching. I still have people ask me where I'm teaching now.
Mhm.
And it's like, I haven't taught in the classroom for 5 years,
Yep.
And so, uh, you know, I think one of the issues is that sometimes our identity gets very much caught up in our work.
Mhm.
And I truly believe it is the last place that our identity should live,
I agree
any at
with
all.
you. Yeah.
And but it happens so often. Like I was a teacher, I was supposed to be a teacher, and I do believe that I was supposed to be a teacher, and
Mhm.
that being a teacher has led me to where I am now,
Yeah.
and it's made me good at what I do now.
Right, because 'cause
Uh,
you're teaching art.
and yeah, yeah, exactly. It all comes full circle, right?
Yeah.
And the thing that I have found is that I keep working less and less and less. So even going, as a virtual assistant, I started working from home, but I still had quite a few hours. And then I decided, it's almost too many hours because I now have little kids at home. I need to be more present for them.
Mhm.
And one of my most important things for me was being present
Right.
for the people around me. That was something that was like a core value for me. And it's like, as soon as that job makes it so that I can't be present in the right way, then it's not the right thing. And
Mhm.
what has happened over time, and my husband is actually the person who pointed this out to me, is he realized that we are now in a position where our balance as a family is very complete and kind of like holistic, as
Mhm.
opposed to balance being work. They always talk about work-life balance. I don't
Right.
agree with that because that puts work at 50% of your life.
Mhm.
And I don't think that work is supposed to be 50% of our lives.
Yes.
And so our work-life balance is actually the 2 of us as a couple
Mhm.
and what our balance as a family looks like. So what is our family balance? And our family balance has turned into he is the major provider in our family. So yes, he works quite a bit and he has the freedom and flexibility to do that because my job offers so much flexibility on the other side.
Mhm.
So we have presence as a family in our church.
Mhm.
I actually am a part of our leadership team at our church and go to meetings weekly and talk about what our faith formation and things are going to look like. We have presence in our community, being part of different community groups. We have presence in our schools. I was the president of the PTO up until last month
Yeah.
for the last couple of years. And he feels like, and he has said this, he's like, yes, you might not be contributing as much to our family financially as you have in the past, but you contribute so much more in impact that our family has.
That's amazing. I
So
love
he's like,
that.
between the 2 of us, we have a decent amount of impact and we're bringing in enough money to support our family. And so as I build Honestly Awkward, the goal is not to make a bazillion dollars. The
Right.
goal is to let this business fit within the seams of the life that we have. And at the center of that is I don't want a job that takes me out of my church meetings.
Right.
I don't get paid to go help the church or anything like that. But I think that I am truly supposed to be there and that I've had a really good impact in that space. And so I think it has changed. And I've actually spoken to my sisters about this recently as well, is that it has changed my belief. When I hear people ask about work life balance, I'm now almost frustrated to hear it because,
Mhm.
again, it suggests that work should be 50%. And I don't believe that that's true. I believe that as a family, as a unit that God has created, that we have a certain amount of balance that we are supposed to present to the world. And if all we do is throw money at the church or throw money at the schools or throw money, that's great. Everybody needs the money. However, people need people
Mhm.
and they need people who show up. They need that interaction, and I do a daily rosary podcast every day. And one of the things that they talk about is that God is spread from person to person,
Mhm. I
So like
100
if you
believe
don't show
that.
up, if you just give your money to the church, but you never show up and actually like talk to the people
Mhm.
or present to the people or talk about your experiences or listen to other people's experiences, then you're not necessarily like doing your part, if
Right.
that makes sense. And so
That's
by me being able to
beautiful.
contribute in these other ways, by me being able to contribute in these other ways, and he focuses on work, I still have some work, to make me useful and like feel like I have that my, can work. But he also feels more included. So
Mhm.
he's like, I never go to church and feel like I haven't been there because I know that our family has been represented there. And so I can walk in and I can do my part,
Mhm.
as a member of the church. That I don't feel odd walking into the school because I know that you have been present there.
Mhm.
And that, like
Yeah.
our family has been representative and therefore I feel comfortable. And so he's like, you actually have helped me feel more a part of our community, even though a lot of my focus has been on this other avenue.
That's
So
actually
it's
super beautiful. I love that so much. That's really beautiful. It's like you don't
yeah.
always have to contribute financially. And I truly, what that statement that you said that, you know, our relationship with Jesus is shown by being in person, by sharing our stories. I mean, that's the whole reason behind this podcast, Chase and Embrace, is for people to see normal people like you and I living our life for God and having
Mhm.
not always a perfect life because no life is perfect, but having a balanced life, having one that is positive, having one where you're happy, you're not stressed all the time and you're not flying by the night, like your husband's going one way, I'm going another way kind of relationship. It's this whole unit. I really love that you see your family as a whole unit and how it all coincides together. And on the top of that is Jesus directing, and that church is a huge part
Yeah.
of your family. I think that's fully. How did that come to you? I mean, did Jesus just say one day, stop being a teacher?
It was funny because so I actually wrote a play. I wrote 8th grade plays at my
Huh?
last position because I was a full-time teacher, and I just felt like I was supposed to do more creating, like, things like that. So I started looking into classes and things like that that I could potentially do, but they were all during the school day.
Right.
It was like the classes I could take were all during the school year, and, it felt like I was, like, in the wrong place, and I have at that point, I did not lean as heavily on my faith for decision making as I do
Mhm.
now.
Mhm.
Actually, leaving teaching is when my faith got very, very strong.
Uh-huh.
But before that, it was more like I just had a feeling, like, that that I was maybe not going to be here as long as I had thought,
Okay.
you know? And coming to be okay with that.
Mhm.
I think that's the biggest thing with all of this is that our society, and maybe that's a Satan type of a thing, is that it's constantly telling us that, no, you need to hustle, you need to be busy, you need to be, as a woman, I need to contribute a certain amount financially, and I need to kind of hold my place as a contributor in my marriage and things like that. And it's funny because a lot of this idea of balance and impact has come from my husband
Mhm.
saying it. When I say, like, I feel like I need to be providing more, he's like, "You already provide probably more impact than I have."
Mhm.
And he said, "We have to put some value on that impact."
Yeah.
And,
What an amazing husband
and
you
and
have.
that struck me. Yeah, that struck me that he felt that way because it's not common. Like, I understand the idea of, like, maybe having a stay-at-home wife is a common thing, but really recognizing the impact that you can have as a mostly stay-at-home mom,
Mhm.
or a stay-at-home wife is something that I don't think we talk about enough.
Well, and it's just
That
like
there
in
are so many things that we
yeah.
can do outside of working.
Yeah, and the cool thing is, you know, and it doesn't have to be the wife. It could be the husband, right? And like in my situation,
It
my
could be.
husband right now, his sole job is to take care of our property and build and make it this unique place. It's called Heaven's Homestead, and that's his job right now. And
Mhm,
yes, he does help. We have website, we have a website company and he manages that as well. But it's like I'm the one that works full time and
mhm,
he works part time, but his main job is to build Heaven's Homestead and bring value to this. So much so that he loves it that we're actually thinking about starting a flipping house business to where he can flip houses and we would do it every 2 years. So we would live there for 2 years and we would make it the way that we would
mhm,
love it and then flip it again. And that way, you don't necessarily get the capital gains taxes that way, but he's enjoying taking something that is dilapidated because our cabin that we live in right now was not
mhm.
livable. There was 28,000 pounds of garbage in it, and he has turned it into the most beautiful place that I just love. And the thought of selling it, sometimes we think God might be moving us on. We're not sure. We're just kind of in that wait and
Mhm,
see direction. But the thought of it is just like, oh,
mhm,
but he's going to do that wherever we go. Our whole goal is to look for fixer uppers that he can take and see God's vision for it. And this isn't the first property that we've done it. I mean, when we bought this place, it was known as Death Valley because there was so much.
mhm.
The brothers that owned this property, they were pot dealers. They bred hybrid wolves. They dealt with guns. There was domestic violence. And so it was a really dark place. And so now, we've had neighbors come by and say, you guys have brought light to this place. And this isn't the first place that we've done it. We did it in a place in West Virginia as well. It was very dark. There was shamanism there and all kinds of weird stuff there. And so that's what he's enjoying, taking dark, dingy, dilapidated places and bringing God's light into them. So, so we're just
Mhm.
trying to figure out what his next step in his journey is, and I'm doing Chase and Embrace. So I understand, this balance. It's not fun always having two people go to work and then, you're driving. I mean, I had a job where I used to take me an hour and a half one way to get to work. And I just prayed one day and said,
Mm-mm.
God, I just want to work for our company. At that time, we had a software company that he developed our software and we sold it recently. It's just things change. God always keeps you moving and shaking and trying to figure out. And the whole goal is to build relationship with him and to reach the
Mhm.
people that need to hear your story. And so I love, one, that you decided to say yes to Chase and Embrace, but two, you're saying yes to God.
Mhm.
And I want you to tell the story about your plays, because I think it's amazing that you were a drama teacher and you created your own plays. And why did you do that?
So the main reason I did it, so I taught 8th grade, and
Mm-hmm.
in our school district, it was one of the biggest school districts in the state of Iowa. So I taught an 8th grade theater class at 2 different buildings, and I was the head director for both of those shows. And it was a straight play, so not a musical, because a lot of times when people think middle school productions, they think musicals. These were not musicals.
Mm-hmm.
And what I kept finding was that a lot of shows that were appropriate for 8th grade, once they get into 9th grade, what they're allowed to do with content is completely different because it's considered high school.
Right.
But middle school is very, very limited. And so as far as content goes, a lot of the shows I was finding, I would start reading them. It'd have a really interesting context or content, but then we'd find something that's like inappropriate. Like it would reference something inappropriate, like randomly in a joke. And because of copyright, you can't change anything. You have to do the play as it is written and without requesting changes,
Right.
essentially. You also couldn't change, like, the characters. So I would have 5 boys audition at one school, and I'd have 12 boys audition at the other school, and we take everybody,
Mm-hmm.
and then you're trying to find a show that will fit both of those
Right.
completely different. And so I kept finding that pretty much most situations, if I wanted to find an appropriate show, kids were playing like animals, superheroes, or fairy tale characters. Like those were
Wow.
basically what you could find that was like appropriate for 8th grade. But what I realized teaching 8th grade is that they wanted to be treated a little bit older. They wanted to deal with some older issues, not necessarily mature issues, just like school-based kind of issues of
Right.
friendships and things like that. And, so one year I was like, "I'm just struggling to find another show." I found one for the first year. I can't remember if it was my 2nd year or my 3rd year that I wrote the show. But it was just like I was struggling to find a show, and I made a joke to one of my coworkers walking out of school, like, the last day of school
Yeah.
the year before. I'm like, "I think I'm gonna write the show next year." And she goes, "Okay." I was like, "Well," like, it's something I'm thinking about. So I wrote a show called How to Go to a Dance Stag and Still Look Cool.
Okay.
And it was exactly what I needed the show to be. It was 4 different groups of kids that were in these smaller groups. So it was way easier to practice at
Huh.
school, work with small groups from both schools, small groups from both schools at the
Yeah.
same time. And it took these kids through different things that they were going through as they were preparing for a school dance. And so, for example, the one group is just a dad and a daughter, and the daughter comes home, locks herself in the bathroom, and this single dad is trying to talk his teenage daughter out of the bathroom the whole
Huh.
show and trying to get her to still go to the dance. And what we come to find out is that the person she really wanted to ask her had asked somebody else and she wasn't taking it well.
Uh,
And so he was talking about his experiences in high school, and what it was like to be hip in high school
yeah.
for him. So we saw their relationship grow,
Mm-hmm.
through this conversation on either side of this door,
Right. That's
that was taking place.
awesome.
Yeah, like things like that. We had 4 boys. It was this whole thing was called like Bro Code was the name of this little group. And they had 5 different scenes, and it was boys hanging out in their bedrooms, and they find out that the one boy who had a girlfriend was not going to go to the dance because he didn't know how to dance. And so the other boys took it upon themselves to try to teach him how to slow dance.
Okay.
And so the whole scene was about trying to teach this other kid too embarrassed to go to the dance with his girlfriend, how to dance. And so it's these 4 boys trying to figure out how to make this work.
That's
And
awesome.
so,
Very creative.
it's just silly things like that are kind of they're silly. They're things that a lot of concerns that a lot of kids have at that
Yeah.
age,
Yeah.
and just how they go through it. And, you know, and it's just it was a lot about putting friends first, like that your significant other is not important at this age.
Mhm.
That you need to cling to your friends, you need to make sure that you're not doing anything that is disheartening, that there's always somebody else who's going to like you, even if the
Yes.
person that you currently like doesn't,
Right.
and that our parents are real people who had real experiences who can actually help you sometimes,
Mhm.
you know?
Yes.
As you're kind of going through these things. So rather than shutting them out, i.e., the door in the middle of
Yeah.
the stage, if you let them talk to you, that it can actually make you feel
8th
better.
grade, 7th and 8th grade, middle school is just I it's just an awful experience.
Yeah,
I saw
it's
it for
tough.
me personally, and then watching my daughter go through it too. It's just, I feel so bad for anybody that has to go through middle school at that time, for the parents and the kids, because it's
Yeah,
such a raw
yeah,
time. But the cool thing about the play is that you sold it or you sell it, right?
good. Yep, yep. It's published through Eldridge Publishing, and it actually was performed a couple times this last year, which is absolutely nuts because it kind of died with COVID.
Huh?
So it was published maybe the year before COVID happened, and then when COVID happened, all the theaters basically shut down, right?
Right.
So if you didn't have a show that could be produced online in a situation like this, then it kind of was just not being produced.
Mhm.
And randomly, twice this last April, like literally like on the same weekend, I think, it was produced in 2 different parts of the country
So
by 2 middle
cool.
schools.
That's awesome.
And I'm very proud of that because it is a very clean show,
Mhm.
because I've always been Christian and I've always had very firm values, and, like,
Right.
there's certain content our kids just don't need to be surrounded by. So it's a very clean show. I actually put in my notes that you can change lines and stuff as needed,
Mhm.
because I had been running into that issue as a director that there's things
Right.
that I need to change. So I actually put it into my notes that please adjust this,
Mhm.
like, as needed in order to work for your group. And, it's something that I'm proud that kids are performing, in different places. I think that it's something that a school doesn't have to be worried about,
Right.
content wise, so I wrote that one, and then I wrote a second one, that I did not publish, that we performed, and then it was actually read in the classes at my school, for quite a while even after I left. They
Okay.
continued to read that play as a group because it kinda connected back to, the John Steinbeck novel of Mice and Men,
Mm.
and it, like, referenced that book, and so they would read that book in honors, and then they would read the show, and I just left my scripts for them to read it,
That's cool. You should have
and I
published
wrote a
it
6th
though.
grade show. It would need some more editing and stuff like that, I think, in order to be published more widespread.
Mhm.
Because it is kind of important to have some knowledge of that text in order for them to understand, like, why the characters are acting the way that they are.
Right.
But it was very effective for the students that I had. Like, it was another kind of vignette style show, and again, something I'm actually a lot of the reason that they continued to read it at the school even after I left is that it had a lot to do with empathy,
Mm.
about understanding other people's perspectives, being
Mm.
able to so, like, one of the scenes in that one was called Falling Asleep. The show was called Falling, and so
Huh?
each of the small scenes was something: falling star, falling asleep, falling,
Mhm.
and it was about the kid that falls asleep in class all the time, and he gets paired up for a group project about the book with the go-getter in class. And maybe
Mhm.
this kind of comes back to my own story a little bit
Right.
about needing balance,
Huh? Yeah.
but she comes to realize that just because he falls asleep all the time doesn't mean he doesn't know the book,
Right.
and that he can't participate in the conversation, and that his home life is actually he spends a lot of time taking care of his 3 younger sisters,
Mhm.
and his mom. He has a single mom that works full time, and, through their conversation and having to work on this project together, they come to the realization that they actually have more in common than they originally thought, and, that the girl who's very much a go-getter realized that there are other people who can contribute to conversations and things even though they don't make it their whole life.
Right.
And then that kinda comes back to where I am right now, where I realize that, I don't need to be working all the time in order to be able
Mhm.
to contribute,
Yeah.
that I can still be part of the conversation.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, so
well,
I had those shows,
Yeah, it's kind of funny that, you write to kind of reflect your life, and I feel like
Very much.
God uses our experiences in a lot of different ways. And the biggest thing is some of it's creative, some of it's, just telling the stories. There's a lot of authors that have been on Chase and Embrace that tell their story through words in that way. God, everything, every aspect that we are, the creative side, all the positive things. I mean, who was the creator? I mean, look what he's created. He created us, he created the trees, the universe, the galaxies, all of that, right? And he says that
Mhm.
we're created in his image. So it's just nice to know. It's just kind of a wonderful feeling that our creativity is part of him. And so we can use that to tell our stories. And so I just think that,
Yeah,
go ahead.
and now with Honestly Awkward, it's really fun to be a part of a business that is encouraging people to explore hobbies.
Mm-hmm.
It's not I'm not asking people to go out and work harder. And when I was an online business manager, it was almost felt like the opposite. Right?
Right.
My job was to basically streamline and make everything so efficient that everybody didn't have to work as hard, but we
Uh-huh.
were pushing forward hard as a business, right?
Right.
And like, yes, that's all fine and good financially and for the growth of the business, but we get so caught up and we have to keep growing that it's like,
Yeah.
what's wrong with staying right where we are?
Right.
Like, what's wrong with letting this business be successful in its current stage and just like
Yes,
letting it live there? For a
exactly.
little bit. I never understood what the need for continuing to grow a business is. If the business is very successful and living within the current infrastructure in an efficient way, you
Huh?
know, at what point is it just it's exactly as it was supposed to be in this moment. Like let it
I
live in this moment.
100% agree with you because, we had the software company that it launched in 2018. And, in the world of software, you're like, you have to get that 10,000 MRR, monthly recurring revenue, as quickly as you can to
Yeah.
grow, grow, grow. And
Yeah.
I didn't, for me, customer service was number one. And so to provide really good customer service, I couldn't grow 10,000 MRR right away. And in our target audience needs customer service. They needed a lot of hand holding. So there was continuous meetings and trainings and all of those things. And if I just added more and more of customers or clients, then I'm fully stressed out and have no time whatsoever to do anything else. And that whole life balance, it's very interesting is that God asked us to sell our home and to travel the country in an RV. And we were able to do that. But we traveled
Mhm.
from, our travel days were Friday and Sunday. And then during the week, we were in stationary. And then I would have my meetings and trainings and whatever else. We just had to make sure there was internet. And it was amazing. But if I would have had like 40 clients, 40 meetings, every week, we wouldn't have been able to do that as easily because there are
Yeah.
move days. And so it was very interesting. It gave us a freedom to not grow as fast. And then one year, it was 2023, I felt God say, don't grow your business, don't market it, don't do anything. And I was like, well, is this God? We always question, is this me? Is it God? I was, very exhausted. We had had our highest growth year in 2022. But then I was like, okay, it has to be God. And I said that very thing because the world would say to keep going. So it's not me, it's God. Unfortunately,
Mhm.
there was a reason, and that was that a month later after God told me that, or a couple months after he told me that, his daughter was killed. So if we had been marketing our business and growing our business, we wouldn't have been able to grieve, because we'd have all these new
Mhm.
clients and onboardings and stuff. So it was sometimes you just have to listen to those inner thoughts because they could be from God. Question it. There could be a reason. And then one of the things about that software company is that we were going to give it his daughter wanted to get trained as a developer, and we were going to eventually train her in every aspect of the job and give her the company. But once she died, that was gone. And so then, we said, okay, God, my husband really wanted to sell it. I tried to manage it by myself. I'm not a developer, so it wasn't going well. And people started to leave, and I'm just like, okay, God, if you want to sell this, sell it. If you don't, because sometimes you just have to throw it up there and see what God does. And it sold within 3 months. And it was not by any means world success, but it was successful for us because it allowed us that balance that you're talking about here. It's not always about money, and yeah, you can buy things and you can do things, but sometimes the things aren't worth the peace that you have, that you can get if you're not making as much money. I think the ability to take a moment and walk out on my 10 acres and take a walk and talk with God because I don't have any meetings is way more worth than that $100 or $150 or $200 or whatever it is to make in that hour.
Hmm. And I truly feel like we've gone so far as a society in that direction
I do too.
that, we have to keep building, we have to keep making more, everything has to keep getting built bigger, that a lot of the business owners that I know that I've worked with, that I've worked alongside, they are so far away from the reason that they started that business in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
They started it because they really enjoyed the content that they were sharing, or they started it because they really wanted to help people do XYZ. And then through that, they have ended up in the CEO role because we feel like as business owners, we should naturally move into like a CEO role or whatever. When, I think that it's more realistic to think like, actually, I'm going to let somebody else be the CEO. I'm definitely going to take an owner's cut.
Yeah.
But I'm actually going to continue just to write the blog posts that I
Yeah.
was originally writing when I made it special in the first place. We
Exactly.
have these thoughts that we need to be the one that builds this business, but in doing so, we move so far out of the talents that were given to us by God, and that
Mm.
we overwhelm ourselves, we stress out, God asks us to use the talents and gifts that he gives us in order to, back to other people. And I think a lot of times in building a business, we kind of get lost in that and we move away from our actual talents and our
Mm.
gifts. And we start moving into this other path that we think we're supposed to take. And it's like, no, hire somebody else to take that path.
Yes.
You know, somebody else do
100%
that.
agree.
Hire an online business manager or somebody else that is their talents and that's their skill set. Let them continue to grow the thing that you created,
Mm-hmm.
and you sit down and continue to do the part that you are actually sharing the talents and gifts that you
I
have.
100%
And so,
agree. Because, in that year where my husband stepped back to grieve, I tried to do the developer thing. And like I said, I'm not a developer. And so we had to make a choice. We either hire a developer, we had a developer, but what we needed is somebody to manage. A CTO is what we needed. That's what my husband's role was,
mhm,
to check the code, to make sure that it looks pretty and all of these things, right? Because I could not do that. I couldn't even speak to the developer. He never understood what I was saying. I never understood what he was saying. It was just a mess, right?
didn't speak that language.
And so we had to make a choice to either sell it or hire a CTO. And, we looked into hiring a CTO, but they wanted way more money than what we could afford with the money that we were making because we weren't growing that fast. And so we just decided to put it up for sale, and God sold it. And I worked for the company. There was two companies. The one that we sold it to decided they didn't want to do it and sold it to somebody else. And that's what they did. They grew and grew and grew and grew to the point that the software wasn't ready for that growth yet. And so
Mhm.
we got complaint after complaint after complaint. And I just kept telling them, you guys, you can't do this with this target audience. It does not work. And they wouldn't listen to me. It was all about the money and, or whatever. And so I ended up, because it was taking my stress and it was taking my hours, I wasn't able to help my husband on their property with projects anymore. I felt like it was really affecting my relationship with him, the closeness and being able to help him. So I quit, and it was the best decision I made. But a funny note is, a week after I quit, they decided to shut down the software, which really made me sad.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. It's out of my control. I'm not the owner anymore. But I would have been, if it wasn't, if it would have been perfectly fine being the way that it was, but when your goal is money, it changes the dynamic of your life, of the customer that experience that you provide and all of that. So I really love that you saw that. You just wanted to be creative,
Mhm.
and you realize that
Mhm.
being a teacher wasn't a fit for you, and you've made these changes, and they were the best changes that you've ever made, not only for yourself and your relationship with God, but for your family. I love that.
Well, and one thing that I've realized is that, when we talk about being led astray,
Mhm.
right? One thing in my journey that I've noticed as a consistent thing, and I think this might be helpful for somebody to hear,
Yes.
because I feel like I'm supposed to say it. For some reason, I feel like I'm supposed to say this, is that I've had a lot of really good looking opportunities come up right as I'm shifting into something else.
I'm
And so, like, even when I was
one
teaching,
second. I had to pause it for a minute because I don't know if we're paused now or what, but you went totally out. Whatever you wanted to say, Satan did not want you to hear. Didn't want other people to hear. Are you there? We're trying to reconnect. Oh my gosh. Hold on. Are you there?
yep, I got you back.
Okay, good. Whatever you were going to say, Satan did not want you to hear it. No one to hear it. So
Right?
please, please, please re-say what you were going to say.
So, as I've made changes, as I felt like I was supposed to move in a certain direction, I keep having really, really good opportunities come up.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was teaching, as I was getting ready to leave, they brought me into the office and basically said, "We're taking you from going to 2 schools to going to 1. Which school do you wanna be at?" Right? And it's like, "Ooh, my job just got 50% easier, like, by not going between 2 buildings. Like, do I still wanna do this?"
Huh?
And at that point, like, at least I had to get fully implemented in my head that I was ready to be done,
Yes.
but that was really, like, good opportunity.
Huh?
And then I keep finding, and I have fallen prey to this a couple different times, and I think that's what makes it so obvious to me now,
Huh?
is that there's been times that I've been shifting into a certain kind of virtual assistant work, and all of a sudden I'll get a really good opportunity with a pretty good payout if I just start doing this other thing.
Huh?
And it's like, ooh, that's really hard to pass up. And there's been times that I've taken those and I always regret it.
Huh?
Always.
Yep.
And I think that that happens constantly. I think we're constantly trying to be, like, slightly thrown off from the thing you're doing. So
Why?
right now, as I'm moving out of virtual assistant work
Mm-hmm.
and OBM work, and I'm starting to move more into this, like, boots on the ground kind of business model, I keep having random things pop up in the virtual assistant world that it's like, "Ooh, that would be, I should just go
Yeah.
ahead and do that because that's extra, like, for guaranteed income for my family."
Right.
And I'm always battling this idea of providing,
Mm-hmm.
always having to, like, deal with that. And it's actually, it is 100% my husband who keeps saying, like, "Nope, that's not the path you're on. Nope,
Yep.
that's not the path you're on."
That's
Like, I'll say, "Hey,
awesome.
I've got this opportunity." He goes, "Nope, that's not the path. Like, you've said that this is what you're going to do, and you said that this is where you're going to put your energy. That is not the path." And every time I know that, I just keep
Yeah.
thinking like, "But it would make things easier if we had this income or if we had,"
Mm-hmm.
and he just goes, "No, it's not your path like that. This is not the thing, and you need to say no to it, even though you feel like it's a great opportunity."
Yeah.
And I think that for a lot of people, they get ready or they finally feel like they're gonna make a change, and then a raise happens.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they all of a sudden get a raise or they get the promotion that they were really wanting, even though they were literally 1 foot out the door.
Yep.
No, we have to be really, really careful not to let ourselves get pulled back in.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
I totally
you have
agree.
to,
Because Satan doesn't want us
uh
to take the direction that God wants us to go. So I can see that totally happening, that as you say yes to something, then,
mhm,
that all these temptations come. I can totally see
mm,
Satan doing that. The enemy, whatever you want to call
absolutely.
them, call them. is that he wants
Yep.
us off
And that
the
is something that
path
as I
of
look
what
back, I
God
see
has
it
us
over
on.
and over and over again.
Yeah. And, that's just our basic life. It's just like God takes Satan.
And I always regret it. And I see it and I know what it is and I still feel tempted to take it. And again, my husband is just so good at like keeping
My
direction.
gosh.
He is very much like, we're pointing this way. Like, stop deviating, stop trying to go do something else. This is it. And he'll say, like, do you really want to do this? It's like, not really, but I think it would be a great opportunity. Like,
Yeah.
if that is your answer, then that is a no.
Yeah.
Like, if your answer to do you really want to do this is not really, but it would be a great opportunity, it is no.
Yes.
That is like, I think we're just so quick to look at it and go, but the money is there. Like,
Yes. And money's not
it's funny. It's
everything.
every single step comes out.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's so
Yep. So,
interesting
I mean,
that you've
we
seen that
finally have gotten to
pattern.
the point where like mhm. Yep, and so we've gotten to the point where we've just kind of realized, like, what is the absolute minimum that we can get by with?
Yeah.
And if we live at minimum, we're okay.
Yeah.
Like, so anything more than that is just extra, and, like, sometimes we're living at minimum, and sometimes we have a little extra or whatever because something,
Mhm.
great happens with the direction that we're going.
Yeah.
But I don't necessarily need it to be great. Like,
Yeah.
I don't need my paint party business to be extremely successful. I
Mhm.
really don't care. I'm doing it because I want to spread this idea that take time for your hobbies, take time to enjoy painting or doing these crafts, getting out with the girls once a month,
Yeah.
whatever it happens to be, take home a painting and do that instead of turning on the TV tonight,
Right.
or
Look
sit
at our
down with a group
phone.
of people at your house with these yeah, sit down with a group of people at your house with these paint kits because they come ready to go, you just need to add water and just sit there and talk and paint,
Yeah.
like, take the time to do those things, and I don't care if I make a bunch of money off of it or not, and quite honestly, we don't necessarily need me to,
Yeah.
but it's just about, like, what is enjoyable right now, what I think the world needs right now, it's
Mhm.
more arts and crafts,
Yeah. Yeah.
and to be okay with, life being that simple.
Yep. Simple. I think that's the perfect
Yeah.
word. Well, I so appreciate you being on the show and, talking about your story and just your perspective. I think it's a really fresh air in what a lot of people need to hear, that it's not about go,
Thank you.
go, 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 go. It's about peace and enjoyment and, taking the moment with the loved ones, taking that moment to be with our Heavenly Father and spreading love. And that's exactly what you're doing through art and through your family and through PTO and all of those things. And I'm really proud of you for taking that step. And I just appreciate
Thank
you.
you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I appreciate you being on the show, and I've enjoyed our conversation a lot. I really do. It's a really good reminder even for me.
Thank you. It's been fun.
Thank you for watching Chase and Embrace in today's episode. I hope that you learned something. My goal of this channel is that you become closer and understand that Jesus loves you. And if you would like to be on this show, please go to chaseandembrace.com. Also, if you want to be notified of future conversations, please like and subscribe. I appreciate you for watching, and God bless you.